we truly believe that if Officer Forcillo went up as he did and said that he had made a mistake in the second volley, but it truly was a mistake, that the jury would accept that. They didn't. We're a little concerned that it might be a compromised verdict that took place, but we weren't in the jury room, and so it's not for us to say. We have to deal with the verdict now. This is phase one of a long road for us. We have a motion coming up sometime that will be in March or April to stay the proceedings, and we'll have the matter reviewed for an appeal as well. So I think it's early days still for Officer Forcillo. He's still got a lot of fight ahead of him.
When you say stay, what do you mean by stay?
Constable Forcillo directly after.
Yes.
We saw that he didn't really have a reaction when this verdict came down. What did he say to you, and how was he feeling right now?
Obviously, he's disappointed in the verdict, as Councillor Peter Brody just said. But he understands that this is far from over. As Peter said, we have a stay application, and also we're looking at the possibility for appeal. So this process is far from over, but clearly he is shocked and disappointed by this verdict.
What do you mean by a stay proceedings? Is it a more appropriate charge, or are you looking for the charges to be dropped altogether?
No, so a stay of proceedings happens after finding of guilt, but before a conviction is registered, and essentially it disentitles the state to a conviction because of an abusive process. We say that the abusive process is that Constable Forcillo substantially followed the police training he was given, and so if the state gave him that training, they should not be entitled to a conviction in the matter.
And so it would mean, in the end, if you were awarded this, what would it mean for Forcillo?
It would mean a stay of proceedings, and he would presume to be still innocent of the charges.
Losing the ability to argue that it was, as the phenomenon has been called, suicide by cop. I mean, how critical was that to you? And do you think if you'd been allowed to present it, would you would you have something different to say today?
Well, we thought the suicide by cop was a huge part of our defense. It was a huge part going in. We were shocked and disappointed we weren't allowed to put that to the jury. And I believe it would have had an effect with the jury. How much of an effect? I don't know, but I believe it could have changed the outcome on the attempt murder charge.
Peter, do you feel like you got a fair trial, and you wanted it to change the venue initially, and you said that all this media coverage and what happened after this step would create a bias? Do you feel like that happened?
Well, what I think is, I think it started off with a trial by YouTube is what it started off, because what we know is within 7 minutes of the incident taking place, it was posted all over YouTube. People, all kinds of negative comments about what had taken place before they heard the officer's side of the story. So when we started this trial, it's probably one of the only trials I've ever had where every juror who came in, who was a potential juror, said they knew about the case and they had formed an opinion already about the case. My take on it was a negative opinion that they'd already formed because they hadn't heard the officer's side of the story. So I think we started behind the 8 ball on this one. I knew we were going to go in with trying to overcome that. That's why we asked for a change of venue. But what people also don't know is that we had written the Attorney General for consent to see if we could have this matter go judge alone, and that was denied. That's how strongly I felt about it. It's strong enough to write the Attorney General and say we need to go judge alone because public opinion is so tainted that I simply don't think that jurors are going to necessarily be able to overcome the public pressure here and what might be ingrained in their minds from all the YouTube and social media out there.
What happens to Officer Forcillo today? Does he go into custody?
Well, a compromised verdict, as you may know, is that you have jurors that go in and some jurors feel very strongly one way, jurors feel very strongly the other way, and ultimately it becomes a battle of wills in the jury room, and with enough time, the jurors say, let's meet in the middle. And my sense from this jury was, from the body language and what we were seeing, is I felt we really had some people that were against us from the get-go. I really feel we had some people for us, and I think we had some people in the middle. I'm concerned about a compromise verdict in this case, but I also don't want to take anything away from this jury because I wasn't in the jury room. I don't know. It's a question that's left in my mind, but we had 11 people who worked very hard and I think took their duty very seriously. It's a question that's left in my mind, but I can't say these people didn't do their job. They look like a very diligent group of people.
Does Officer Forcillo go into custody now?
Well, people say all the time, if they come back early, is that a good sign for the defense? If they're out long, is that good for the defense, and people have all kinds of theories. And I've done a lot of jury trials over the years, and I can tell you that the amount of time they're out doesn't mean anything at all.
Mike, you have one of your members now exited the temporary. What kind of shadow does that spread on your members and also the family?
Well, again, this is, it's not a question of a shadow. It's a question of what kind of message does that send to our frontline officers who are out there every day dealing with violence, dealing with weapons and stuff like that. Clearly, this sends a chilling message to our members, and our goal is to keep our members engaged, keep them out there doing their job. But when you have an officer who is vindicated for the first 3 shots, as Peter Brody said, and then, who said, listen, my training, I made a mistake, and then he's put in this position, it sends a chilling message to our members, and that's going to be a challenge for our frontline members to deal with this issue. It has definitely impacted the psyche of frontline officers.
Are your officers more vulnerable now? Are they more vulnerable now after this verdict?
Well, that's a big concern for us, is that, are they going to hesitate when they should take action, and what is this going to mean as far as frontline enforcement when we have officers out there, like I said, faced with these situations? Are they going to hesitate? Is it going to cause a safety concern for us and our frontline officers and the public? And that's something we're going to have to address and try to deal with. But I can tell you right now, I've already had a lot of feedback by frontline officers, and they are shocked and dismayed with this verdict.
So what happens to officer going to jail?
Sorry, one at a time.
Going into custody? He's going to jail?
No,
No,
he's not going to custody.
So where does he go now?
Right now, what's going to happen is his bail will be extended, and we'll be coming back in March or April to deal with the next defense motion.
So he can stay out on bail during that time?
Yeah, the matter's not over. It hasn't come to a conclusion.
Peter, do you think the second volley of shots was used excessive force?
I'm sorry?
Do you think the second volley of shots was used excessive force?
No, I don't think it was excessive force in the sense that Officer Forcillo perceived Mr. Yatim to be getting up. And he came to this court and he said, look, I'll be honest with you jurors, I perceived him to be getting up to continue the attack. I've seen the video. Clearly that's not what happened. I made a mistake, and we were hoping that the jurors would embrace that. And if that's what he perceived, then it's not excessive force.
Was it a mistake putting him on the stand?
No, absolutely not. I thought he was the strongest witness in the case. I don't think he was shaken. Absolutely, they had to hear from him. They had to hear, look, I made a mistake, and they had to hear him say, if I had to do this over again, I would have not have done the second volley of shots, which is what he testified
What were
to.
his words to you after you left the courtroom? What did he say to you? What did he say after learning the news?
He didn't have much to say because we had talked about this going in. We had talked about the fact that this is phase 1.
Yeah.
This is phase 1. It's I'll see you after lunch, and we'll schedule the next phase.
Next phase.
Can you say to Constable Forcillo, given the high publicity that this trial has gotten, we don't know what the outcome is ultimately going to be. Do you think this is a police officer that would actually be able to walk the beat tomorrow?
Again, we got to look at this as a long road. I'm not going to comment until we're done on that journey and what Officer Forcillo's plans are after that journey. But again, as we said, this is going to go on. We're looking at grounds for appeal, and my concern right now is for our members to go out there and continue to do the great job that they do, and for them to understand also that this is far from over, and we're going to continue to pursue justice for Officer Forcillo.
But
Will this change the training, officer training?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to have some discussions with the province and the police service, and definitely do a review of police training.
Mike, in fairness, what more?
With Officer Forcillo's job right now?
Well, again, he's going to continue to be suspended until we get to the next stages and see where we are at sentencing. And as we go through each stage, the chief will determine what is appropriate action for Officer Forcillo.
No,
He has not
No, he
been
hasn't been
sentenced.
convicted. He hasn't been convicted. He's been found guilty.
Found guilty, and he hasn't been sentenced. That's not the way it works.
I explained it earlier to your colleagues.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Just a question for you. In your eyes, he's been found guilty of attempted murder, which is punishment. But a lot of public perception is that this is a cop who just got away with murder, and people are very upset. Is that concern to you at all, with your officers walking the beat? That a lot of the public perception is that an officer just got away with murder.
Well, I would dispute that. A lot of the public's perception is that an officer just got away with murder, and I think it's a very complex case and an emotional case, and anybody who followed it would have a better understanding. So, of course, we always have a concern the way legitimacy in our police frontline police officers are perceived. But again, my concern right now is that this sends a different message to our frontline officers, and I need to deal with that. Thank you.
What's the maximum for attempt murder?